I think my mother did exactly the right thing. I think it's absolutely extraordinary.
I can't remember anybody except the Queen being there.
The tiara wasn't where she left it. That was the first thing. The second thing, worse, was that someone had put something else in its place. A folded piece of cream notepaper. No envelope, no name, just 3 words in blue ink, written in a hand and recognized immediately. It's been decided. If stories hidden behind palace walls are what you're drawn to, you know where the subscribe button is. And didn't move for a long time. The velvet stand where Queen Elizabeth's Hanoverian fringe tiara had sat for 43 years. The same stand, the same position, the same shallow indent in the velvet from decades of wait, was empty. The room was cold. No one had thought to turn on the heat. She set the note down on the glass case, and her hand stayed on it longer than necessary. 3 words. It's been decided. She had seen those words before. In memos. In announcements she hadn't been consulted on. In decisions handed down from offices that smelled of new carpet and Camilla's perfume. But not here. Not in this room. This was her mother's room. Let me tell you who was in this story before I tell you what happened in it. Because the people matter more than the tiara. Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, was a woman who had spent her entire life being underestimated. She moved through rooms the way her horses moved through coursework. Deliberate, economical, no wasted motion. When she was thinking hard, she pressed her thumbnail against her index finger until a small white crescent appeared. She never raised her voice. People who knew her well said that was the thing to be careful of. When and went quiet, you listened. Her weakness, the one she would never name, was her mother. She had spent decades absorbing everything Queen Elizabeth had taught her. Duty before self, the crown before the person wearing it, the institution before the family. And now the institution was doing something that made those lessons feel like they'd been used against her. Camilla, Queen Consort. And here's where the story becomes complicated, because Camilla was not a simple villain, and the story only works if you understand that. She was a woman who had waited 30 years to stop being the other woman. 30 years of tabloid front pages, of being called a homewrecker, of sitting in rooms where certain people would not look at her. She had a habit, when she was uncomfortable, of touching the base of her left thumb with her right hand. A small, rhythmic press, easy to miss. She loved her grandchildren ferociously. She had a genuine warmth that photographed as confidence and confused people who expected cold calculation. She also wanted the tiara. King Charles, the mediator, the man perpetually torn, the person who had spent his entire life trying to make everyone in the room comfortable and somehow always making everyone uncomfortable instead, was due to arrive at Windsor that afternoon for what had been described in the official calendar as a scheduling discussion. He had no idea what he was about to walk into. He never did. Sir Timothy Lawrence, Anne's husband, was the kind of man who stood very still in a crisis and asked exactly one question, the right question at exactly the right moment. He would become important later. Eleanor Briggs, senior lady-in-waiting, 31 years of service, the woman who knew where everything was kept and had known about the note for 6 hours before she told, and was going to have to explain herself. And then there was Marcus Webb, Camilla's private secretary, the man who had drafted the paperwork, the man whose handwriting was not the handwriting on the note, the man who knew more than he had said, and less than he thought, who was, at this exact moment, in a corridor 2 floors down, walking very quickly toward the east exit. But what happened next? No one expected. Eleanor found, and in the tiara room at 9:15. Ma'am, when Eleanor closed the door. The request was filed Thursday, and looked at her. Thursday. The formal transfer paperwork. Eleanor. A pause. You knew Thursday. The silence in the room had a texture to it. The clock on the mantelpiece ticked, and pressed her thumbnail against her index finger. The white crescent appeared. I thought it would be stopped, Eleanor said finally. At the senior staff level. I thought someone would who authorized it. The paperwork came from the Queen Consort's office. That's not what I asked. Eleanor's hands were clasped in front of her, the knuckles slightly pale. Marcus Webb filed it. But the instruction, she stopped. The instruction was verbal, and looked back at the empty velvet stand. The note was still there, folded along its crease, 3 words facing upward. "Where is it now?" And said, "The Regency Suite. It arrived this morning." That's where things took a turn. The Regency Suite was where Camilla stayed when the court was at Windsor. It was 3 floors up and a world away from the cool, unornamented room where Queen Elizabeth's jewels had been kept for 4 decades. The suite smelled of cut flowers and a perfume and could never name but always recognized, and did not go to the suite. Not yet. Instead, she went to find Marcus Webb. She found him in the East Corridor, or rather, she found the East Corridor empty and a door swinging on the far end. She heard his footsteps on the stone stairs. She followed. The service staircase at Windsor is narrow. The walls are old stone, and the sound travels strangely. Footsteps above sound like they are beside you. Doors below sound like they are overhead. It smells of damp and the particular cold that only old buildings produce. Not the cold of weather, the cold of accumulated time. And his footsteps were quiet. Years of walking on gravel at 3 in the morning, checking on horses, had trained a kind of automatic silence into her. She moved through the staircase the same way. She was 1 landing above him when he stopped. She pressed herself against the cold stone. The wall met her shoulder blades, and she did not move. Not a shift, not a breath. Her heart was not quiet. It was loud, too loud. She pressed her hand flat against her sternum, as if that would help. It didn't. His voice drifted up through the stone stairwell. "It's done, it's in the suite. I don't know why you're—" "Yes, I understand that." A pause. "She'll find out. She was going to find out regardless. That's why the note was..." Another pause, longer. His voice dropped. "You said you wanted her to know before the event. Those were your..." He stopped talking. She heard him turn. Her breath came slow now. Controlled. Deliberate. She counted. 3, 4, 5. The footsteps below didn't move. He was standing still, 1 landing down, and she was standing still, 1 landing above, and the stone between them carried sound both ways. The footsteps came closer. Up the stairs. 1 step. 2. She did not move. The wall was cold against her back, the stone pressing through her jacket. Her heart was loud. Too loud. She counted her breaths. 3, 4, 5. The footsteps stopped. Started again. Past her landing. Went up. She waited. Counted to 30. Did not move until she reached 28. Then, held at 29, made herself finish the count before she let herself breathe fully again. Then, she moved down the stairs, out through the door Webb had come from, into the gray Windsor morning. She stood outside for a moment. Her throat had tightened at some point during the staircase, and she hadn't noticed until now. She swallowed. It hurt. It should have ended there, but it didn't. The event Webb had mentioned was the Windsor Charitable Gala, 36 hours away. A public event. Press photographers. 200 guests. A live relay to 3 networks. It was an understood now, the moment the tiara was meant to be seen. Not in a private room. Not in a quiet formal portrait. In public. On Camilla's head. In front of 200 people and 3 camera crews. And the note, "It's been decided," had been left for her to find first, so that she would know, privately, before the public did, so that she could choose whether to object or stay quiet, and sat in her own sitting room for a long time after that. The fire wasn't lit. She didn't light it. The room was the kind of still that comes when a person is thinking very hard and very carefully and has decided not to move until they have finished. There was one detail the palace left out. The gala was not just a public event. It was being co-chaired officially by Princess Anne. Sir Timothy found her there at 11:30. He came in, saw her face, and sat down in the chair across from her without saying anything for a moment. He had a habit of reading a room before speaking into it. "The tiara," he said. "Yes." "When did you find out?" "This morning." He was quiet. Then, "What do you need?" And looked at the unlit fire. "I need to know if the transfer was legitimate." Tim nodded once. "I'll find out." Without alerting Marcus Webb that we're looking. "Of course." He stood. At the door he paused, 1 hand on the frame, not turning around. "The gala," he said, "Are you still attending?" Ann's voice, when it came, was perfectly level. Yes. What came next, even those closest to them didn't see coming. Charles arrived at Windsor at 2:15 in a car that smelled of wood polish and cold leather. He walked into the East sitting room with the slightly preoccupied look of a man who believed he was about to have a scheduling discussion and was already thinking about the meeting after this one. He found his sister standing at the window. He found a 3-word note on the table. He found his wife was not in the room. He picked up the note. "Read it. Set it down." Anne, she didn't turn from the window. "I need you to tell me," he said, "that you knew about this." A pause. "Did you," she said, "know about this?" The way she asked it, not as an accusation, not yet, but with a particular quality of stillness that Charles had grown up recognizing, made him set the note down more carefully than it required. The Tiara issue was raised informally, as part of a broader conversation about Charles. She turned. "Did you approve a formal transfer request?" He looked at her. His hands were folded in front of him. He pressed them together once. "I was told," he said slowly, "that the relevant parties had been consulted." "I'm a relevant party." "Yes." He didn't look away. "I understand that. I am the Princess Royal. I co-chair the Windsor Gala. That tiara was presented by our mother to I know what it was." Silence. "She wanted it for the gala," he said quietly. She thought it was meant as a tribute to Mother. Anne's expression didn't change. Her breathing came slower now, controlled, deliberate. "A tribute," she said, "and to our mother. I know how it sounds. Do you?" He looked down at the note, up again, and that's when everything changed. Here is what Tim found. The formal transfer paperwork, filed Thursday, as Eleanor had said, by Marcus Webb, carried the correct signatures. It had been processed through the correct channels. On paper, it was legitimate, but the paperwork referenced an authorization document, a letter supposedly from the late Queen's private correspondence, indicating her wishes regarding the tiara's future placement within the family. Tim tracked down the document number. He found a registered copy in the Royal Archives. He looked at it for a long time. The paper was cold. Older paper feels different, thinner, with a particular smoothness that modern paper doesn't have. This paper was not old. This paper was 3 months old. The document had been created 3 months ago and backdated. Tim sat in the archives room with the document in his hands, and the archivist, a woman named Susan Ford who had worked there for 19 years and who had noticed the discrepancy herself and had not known who to tell, standing very quietly by the door. "Who accessed this file?" Tim said. Susan Ford looked at her hands. "Ms. Ford." "Marcus Webb," she said, "and someone from the Queen Consort's office. I don't have a name." She paused. "They brought the document with them. I was told to file it in the existing correspondence section, under the late Queen's correspondence." Tim looked at the document, at the date at the top, a date that predated certain events by 4 months, the neat blue ink of a letter that had never existed until recently. Here's what most people missed. The document wasn't just backdated. It referenced a conversation, a private conversation between Queen Elizabeth and Camilla, supposedly in the final weeks of the Queen's life, in which Her Majesty had expressed her wishes. It was detailed, specific. It mentioned the tiara by name. It mentioned the Windsor Gala, and it was entirely fabricated, because the Windsor Gala had not been announced until 6 weeks after the Queen's death. And read Tim's report standing at the window of her sitting room, the pages in both hands. She read it twice. She set it down. She sat down. She sat there for a long time. The thing about receiving information that confirms what you already suspected is that it doesn't feel like relief. It feels like a door closing on the version of events where you were wrong. And that version, the one where there was a misunderstanding, where something could be easily explained, where the people around you had not done what they appear to have done, that version was now gone. She pressed her thumbnail against her index finger. "Right," she said, to the empty room. What happened after that? No one could have predicted. She went to see Camilla, not with the document, not with Tim's report, not with any accusation. She knocked on the door of the Regency suite at 4:30, was shown in by a member of Camilla's staff, and found Camilla standing near the window in a cashmere cardigan, a cup of tea in one hand looking out at the gray Windsor afternoon. The tiara was on the dressing table. It caught the light from the window. It threw small patterns on the wall behind it, bright, scattered, restless. Camilla turned. She had the look of a woman who had been expecting this visit and had spent time preparing for it and was not yet sure the preparation had been enough. And, Camilla, a pause. Sit down? I won't, thank you. Camilla set down her tea. Her right hand moved her left thumb, that small, rhythmic press. She caught herself, stopped. I wanted it to be a tribute, she said. I want that on the record. I genuinely, a forged letter, and said, is not a tribute. The word forged landed in the room the way a stone lands in still water. The effect was immediate. Camilla's composure didn't crack. It held for a moment, the way thin ice holds, and then something shifted behind her eyes. I don't know what you... The document referencing the Queen's wishes, and said, the one dated her lifetime, the one that mentions a gala that hadn't been announced yet. The room was very still. Camilla looked at her. Her hand was back at her thumb, pressing. That was Marcus, she said, and her voice was lower now, quieter. The letter was his idea. I didn't, she stopped. You didn't know. Silence. Or you didn't ask. Camilla turned back toward the window. The afternoon light was flat, gray, without warmth. I've been patient, she said, after a moment. For a very long time. I know. I wanted something of hers. Something that said, she stopped again.